Welcome, everyone. This is Jacob from the Cause Production crew, and today I am here with Deanna and Rachel from Meet Me at the Well, a foundation that is dedicated to fighting human trafficking. And today we're going to ask Deanna and Rachel about 5 questions about their experiences fighting human trafficking and how we can all learn more about this practice that is unfortunately very common throughout the world, as we will learn. So, very nice to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So the first question is, you were involved with an organization called Meet Me at the Well, which I'm sure that many people watching this interview are not familiar with. So could you tell us what exactly is Meet Me at the Well?
Sure. So Meet Me at the Well is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 based out of Delaware, and we provide support services for survivors of trafficking. And that can be scholarships, mentorships. We provide workshop spaces so that survivors could start a business if they wanted to. It's an entrepreneurial space. And what else would you say we do?
We do a little bit of it all. We're all about empowering them in every way possible, of making sure all their core pillars of housing, education, job is set emotional. We have a very holistic approach. We really just want to support them and, like we said, empower them in every area of their life.
All right, it's very interesting. So Meet Me at the Well is an organization dedicated to stopping human trafficking. But in order to stop human trafficking, we all need to understand what exactly is human trafficking, which is why our second question is, what is human trafficking? And could you give us some statistics on it so we could better understand what it is?
Sure. I'll take it. Yeah. So human trafficking involves sex trafficking and labor trafficking, or separately. And it involves force, fraud, or coercion, inducing someone to commit an act against their will, whether it's for labor or for sex. And it's an exchange of commercial goods. There's an exchange of value. The difference with minors is that force, fraud, or coercion don't have to be proven, as long as if any youth is found to be engaging in any type of commercial sex act, it doesn't matter whether there was any force, fraud, or coercion. It doesn't have to be proven. Being a minor is enough for them to be considered a victim of human trafficking.
Yeah, so statistic-wise, it's a $150 billion industry every year. And when we were talking about youth, the statistics for youth is 1 in 4 of homeless youth will be approached within the 24 hours that they're on the street. That's pretty big.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's very unfortunate that this practice of human trafficking exists. But you are both dedicated to stopping it at Meet Me at the Well. But we wanted to know, here at the Cause, what is your personal story of getting involved with Meet Me at the Well, and what is your personal story and history of stopping human sex trafficking?
Sure. So Meet Me at the Well got started by Amy Day. She was our founder, and this was in 2014. She was going to school and working at the same time, and she was working a midnight shift at a diner in Delaware, and she realized that some of the patrons that were coming in would come in frequently enough that she started to notice a pattern, and she would offer food or clothing to some of the patrons that looked like they hadn't eaten in a long time, or that they hadn't had someone care about them in a long time. And sometimes they would accept, but sometimes they would say, I can't because my boyfriend's watching and he will be mad if I take anything from you or if I accept any help. And that's when she started to realize that there was something else going on, that there was another person controlling what was happening in the situation. So it might look like prostitution on the outside, but we don't realize that there's something else that's going on, that there's somebody else that's controlling the situation. And it broke her heart. And she went back to her community, she went back to her church, and they got together and started doing outreach in the local communities and started to Meet Me at the Well. Unfortunately, within the first year, Amy was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I think it was about 9 months into starting the organization officially, I was talking to my mom about it, and they belong to the same church, and I was doing an internship on, it had to be related to trafficking because my program at school was focused on domestic trafficking, but it was public policy, public service. And my mom told me about Amy and the organization, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to jump in. I have to be a part of this. I want to help and keep this going. And I never was able to meet Amy because she was in the hospital when I started. But ever since that moment of getting together with the organization, we've all continued to carry Amy's torch to fight human trafficking in Delaware. Amy passed away in 2016, and we still carry her vision.
Okay, it's really hard to follow that. My personal story is about 15 years ago, I saw a documentary. I really wish I could remember which documentary that was, but it was about human trafficking here in the States. And for me, my first question was, whoa, that's actually happening here. And I kind of became obsessed with wanting to understand why it is here and if it is. And so I first started volunteering with an incredible ministry that did strip clubs. So we'd go into strip clubs and give the girls like goodie bags and stuff in there for them and just say, hey, just love on them. Led to me volunteering with about 5 other incredible organizations. And I even started my own in California. When I moved back here and decided to start in Delaware, got to partner with Meet Me at the Well, which is very similar to the one I started, which is all about the holistic and long-term care of them. And I'm honored to be able to come on as a case manager with Meet Me at the Well and work directly with these incredible clients.
We are so lucky.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's a very interesting story of your founder, Amy, and her story of helping out young women with human trafficking. So that goes for your founder. And I'm sure that both of you have obviously worked with people of all sorts of ages from different backgrounds and cultures. So we were wondering, in order to get a more personal understanding of human trafficking, do you have any stories about from your victims about human trafficking, especially ones that stood out to you, that really helped you to become more passionate about fighting human trafficking?
Yeah, so we try really hard to protect the stories of the people that we work with, especially because the area that we work in is so small. But I will share that within my own personal family, we grew up saying trafficking in a different way. We didn't know that it was trafficking, but looking back now, I realized that I had a really close family member that had been trafficked. And for this specific family member, it started as an intimate partner violence, and it was a very violent relationship that she was involved in. And it moved from that intimate partner violence to substance use, and then her partner used the substances to control her so that it became drug-facilitated trafficking. And what we said back then, which, we don't say it now, but, she got put out there. She's on that stuff, right? We know better now. And it breaks my heart because I just don't think that anyone should ever have to go through anything like that, and especially not be blamed for a situation that they had no control over being in.
Yeah, I would say first, just speaking from that, I get to work with them all the time. Our survivors are so strong, so resilient, so incredible that they all come from different walks and where they're at in their journeys. And I guess same thing, we want to protect them, but I can give you an example of just a couple that I've worked with is one specifically, and also to speak to how important it is to have our community involved and our mentors and people that come in and do workshops. I worked with a young woman about 4 years ago, who she was pregnant when we connected her with her mentor. And this mentor called me after their first meeting crying, saying she hates me. She wouldn't say one word to me. You could tell she didn't even want to be there. And I was like, nope, she said she wanted to be a part of this program and wanted to work with us. To fast forward 9 months, almost a year later, they were our MVP crew. They became best friends, that we just watched that one client just blossom. She was hanging out with her outside of just when she was meeting her to mentor her, was bringing her to personal things. It was such a beautiful friendship of building that trust that at first, she came with a lot of trust issues and it was really hard, and she was in a very scary place in her life, to how that incredible mentor just really kept showing up and showing her I'm here, and changed her life. Now she's working and her baby's older and she's thriving. She has her own place. And so it's a journey. But we're honored to be able to do it. And it's hard in the beginning. But having patience and grace and continuing to show up is why we do what we do.
I love that example because human trafficking is a betrayal of relationships. So what we're trying to do is rebuild that relational capacity, and what Rachel described is exactly what we're trying to do, is just healing and giving that courage to trust again. And I think that was perfect. I'm glad that you shared that example. And sometimes working with survivors of trafficking or anybody that's experienced complex trauma, I mean, we compare it to a survivor or a war veteran because, they may have been experienced torture or extreme violence or witnessed extreme violence, that the behaviors that you see is not always what's going on underneath the surface. So even though they might be, upset and saying, I don't ever want to ever talk to this person again, and then as soon as the person walks out the door, they say, oh my gosh, I don't ever want that person to leave me, this because that might be the safest person that they know. So it's just important to have that understanding. And we do training, absolutely we do training. We do presentations like this. So if anybody's interested, we can absolutely do those. And I'm just glad that we get to be here and talk about this. Awareness is power.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those are very interesting and admirable stories of people who persevere through such extreme hardship. But that's kind of leads into our final question for tonight. We've heard from both of you stories of these people who have, against all the odds, through your help, endured through these difficulties. And I'm sure for a lot of people listening or watching this interview, that provides inspiration for them and they're probably asking, how can I stop human trafficking? Which is why our last question for tonight is, what are some ways, whether they're general or specific, for us as a community to unite together and help fight this horrible practice of human trafficking?
We can't do it without the community. It's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, like my story said, we are always in need of the community getting involved in any ways. And I know sometimes this is a tough subject that people are like, well, how can I get involved? And I don't know. Like Deanna said, we do trainings, we prepare you, and there's so many different areas. Someone has something that they can bring to the table, of whether you're a business and you want to sponsor us in some way, whether you have a special skill and you want to bring that special skill and do a workshop with our clients and teach them budgeting or whatever it is you may bring. People sometimes have time and can be a mentor and can build those friendships like we needed. There's so many ways on our website. Reach out to us. We want to get you plugged in. But like she said, it's a relational area. And I would say look up your local areas that are nonprofits. We're one of them that are doing this, and ask, what can I bring to the table? How can I get involved? And if there's nothing that you feel you have time to give, monetary, continue funding us to show up and meet them where they're at and love them and work with them. Anything?
Yeah. I would say just share the knowledge. When you hear about it, don't be afraid to talk about it.
Yes.
When you give a name to that monster in the room, you take its power away. So don't be afraid to say that out loud. Talk about human trafficking. Talk about what labor trafficking is, what sex trafficking is. Give yourself that power back. Have the conversations and expose it so that we don't give the power to the trafficker.
Definitely. I really appreciate all of us really appreciate the information you provided with us today, and thank you very much, Deanna and Rachel, again from Meet Me at the Well. And
Thank you,
I'm
Jacob.
sure that with the information and great knowledge you provided us about human trafficking, we can all be inspired to step in and take action to fight and end this horrible practice of human trafficking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jacob. Thank you for the cause.